lot of passionate founders don't land up doing really well, right? When passion meets what the world wants, fantastic. All right? So that's the first piece of advice. Do not follow your passion just because it exists. The world's not necessarily going to reward it. You may not have an outsized reward as a result of it. Let's get to the next one. So what should you do? You should follow your proficiency. Follow what you're good at. Follow what the world is already paying you for, that you've become really good at, right? And this is a term that in the VC industry is called founder market fit. This is a good founder. He's been working in banking for a while. He's going to start something in finance. Sure, let's throw some money at him, right? She's been working in the beauty industry. She's done this for 10 years. She knows her shit. Go on, let's throw some money at her, right? So founder market fit is a word which you must know as a phrase way before people start throwing product market fit at you. What's the next one? The what? Okay, so you know now you want to start up. What should you start up about, right? I've done this. Everyone else in the world does it the same way. Why will you succeed? You will succeed if you've got something contrarian. You've got to search for a specific insight you have that the world disagrees with. Let's take a few examples, right? Let's say Zomato. How many of you have used Zomato? How many of you remember a world without Zomato or Swiggy? Right? Okay. It was pretty simple. If you told your parents, okay, we need to order Chinese food, you'd pick out a menu, you'd look at it, and you say, done. But now, look at where you are today. You're ready to pay an outsized amount for the same food, which, 15 years ago, your parents would have disagreed with you about to be doing. It sounded stupid, right? The contrarian view was people will end up paying for this value. And the world disagreed with that before. Think of Airbnb. Will you let strangers in your home, right, use your bathroom, give them a room for a day, and they're going to walk out next day? Will you feel safe? Contrarian. Right? Cabs are not supposed to have been an issue to figure out. But Ubers, Olas, of course, all exist. That's the next one. Do things that don't seem to scale in the start. And that's also part of being contrarian. Right? I mean, if Deepinder was just collecting menu cards and putting them on a website, it would seem, okay, how many would you do for all over India? It didn't seem to have scaled. Marketplaces, in fact, almost if it's a new marketplace, will have this as an originating problem. Once you figure out that insight, and if you can do things in one way that doesn't scale, and you're able to then only crack the code of how it will. Let's get to the next one. When? You all hear the stories about the 20-year-olds who then go on and create unicorns, and you worry, what the hell have I done with my life? Right? It's too late. I have kids now. My kids have to go to school. I need this monthly paycheck. Right? It's not too late. Here are 3 statistics from Silicon Valley. 47 years is the average age of a successful exit, which means an IPO or an acquisition. 45 is the age for the average age of the top 0.1% of venture-funded businesses in Silicon Valley. You have time. 50-year-olds are likely to be twice as successful starting up than 30-year-olds. All right? So it's okay if you've tried and didn't succeed. If you've thought and you gave up, there's still time. Who? Should you start up alone? Should you have a co-founder? How will I build my team? We'll talk about the team later. Right? Now, How many of you have, so remind me amongst the founders over here, how many of you know venture capital funds and you interacted with them? Please raise your hand. As I said, it's a slightly interactive one. Can we get a mic out to the audience briefly? To the lady in red. Do you have a co-founder?
No.
When you approached the VC, what did they say?
You do not have a co-founder, we cannot do it.
Right. To this gentleman here in front, can we get his view as well?
The answer is yes. Like, I do have a co-founder, and the angels invested in us
Right.
quickly.
See? Okay. Good. Now, this is a statistic, of course, and investors want you to have co-founders in the start. Also a statistic. 30% of companies fail because of co-founder conflict by Series A. This is DocSend statistics. Right? Think of any large unicorn, the top 7 companies in the world, single co-founder at the end of it. Here's the problem, right? In the early stage, as you diversify risk, VCs say to diversify risk, you should have co-founders because I can't trust you alone, right? Decision making by committee is way better than decision making alone. After a period of time, statistically, you're likely to disagree with your co-founder on something or the other, which might break the company. And so, it might actually be way better for you to be a solo founder at least later, if not earlier. So just make it through the early years, right? However, if you do need to have a co-founder, everyone will be like, okay, let's get this absolute perfect algo, right? You know tech, you know product, you know business, you know marketing ops, clear, right? Great, but I don't know you, right? So do not optimize for complementarity before you optimize and you solve for trust. You want to be sure your co-founder can work and run the company if you get into coma for 3 months without needing you. Ask that extreme question and then you know you solve for trust. This is the big one. This is almost always the biggest one. How? All right, you got these first few questions solved. How? This is a long one. Almost always, you're going to experience each and every one of these emotions on the screen. You'll be disappointed. Disappointed by your customers, your investors, friends who you thought would back you don't back you, right? Employees, very frequently, right? Anxiety. Will I have enough money in the bank? Will anyone even back me? Is this worth it? Am I an imposter? You will constantly ask yourselves these questions. You will be anxious about starting up. You will be anxious after starting about of possibly failing. You will, every now and then, but extremely rarely, feel exhilarated, right? That exhilaration doesn't last long. It lasts as long as an orgasm, no longer. You will feel anger, right? You will be angry about why the hell did I not do this differently. You will constantly be angry about yourself, about the choices you make every day, every week, every month. You will be sad. You will feel like, oh my God, look at that guy. He just got, someone I knew, he started after me. He's in the same business as me. He got funded. Damn, what's that ARR they're doing? Note, the whole purpose of this is, however, to explain survivability. You can't control anything outside of where you are. You'll be discontent with all the effort you're putting in and the results you're not yielding as a result of it. Exuberance, very similar to exhilaration. You will feel like, oh my God, if I just do this, it will be awesome. And it won't. And if I just do that, it'll be way better. And it won't. Right? You will also, every now and then, feel some level of contentment that, hey, at least I'm on this journey. And this has taught me. Every 1 year in startup life is 4 Earth years. Think of it like that. All right? How can you do something different to stack the deck in your favor? If you're starting up, the first thing is have a very long and deep set of principles, things that you will completely envision, embody every day, which you will tell your team members that they will, which you will look for in your team, right? This is a personal exercise. It's not a group exercise. It's not committee thing. This is just you, for yourself. If you have co-founders, it's an individual exercise. And then you come up with a Venn diagram of where they meet and where they don't. The second one, the most important one. Everyone's heard, who all here have heard of this phrase called culture eats strategy for breakfast? Please raise your hands. Yeah? Systems munch on culture. If you recognize that culture is nothing but a subsection of the processes that you've built and the systems that you've built, right? About how you deal with people. What are processes? You will need to have a detailed list of checklists of do's and don'ts. What that'll do is it'll open up your decision making, the way you think about things. At Winvesta, we have checklists for almost every process. You have to have deep processes in a way that you can hold your team members accountable for whether they did or did not do it, create transparency in the way they did it or did not do it. Who do you hire? I'd love to have thoughts from people who work in companies, who are founders, on these questions. Missionaries or mercenaries? Okay? Who is a missionary? I really believe in what we do. Who is a mercenary? I'm going to make this grow from A to B, and that's going to be my achievement. That's the difference. Right? The first one again, missionary. I'm going to be with this no matter what. I really, really believe in the ethos over here. How many believe you need missionaries first? Okay, one. How many believe you need mercenaries? More. Mercenaries? Raise your hands a bit higher. Cool. Yeah. You need a good selection of both. You can't do with just one. But if you had to choose, you had one role, and you need to fill it with a missionary or a mercenary, who would you fill it with? How many say missionaries? Raise your hand. One role, equal opportunity. Missionaries? Okay, 2. Mercenaries? Cool. Now here's the second question. It depends upon the seniority in the role. The more senior, the more missionary you want it to be. The more junior, the more mercenary you want it to be. Right? Next question. Generalists or specialists? Early stage startup, how many say generalists are better? Okay, I want you to please raise your hand one way or the other. Huh? If you're sitting on the fence, it's going to pain. Right? So how many say generalists? Cool. How many say specialists? Cool. People who raise their hands for generalists, please give me your views. Gaurav, why don't you start? Why generalists?
List typically, in the early days, it helps. You have more hands on the deck. Everybody can pick up the work and then do.
Great. There's a gentleman behind you in the jacket. He also said generalists.
Well, when the startup is starting, the resources are limited. So it's better to have generalists so that they can do more stuff, and it's better for the startup at that point of time.
Cool. You want to add? The gentleman there.
See, it also depends on the viewpoint of the founder, maybe. So, as if you talk about my viewpoint, I am always there to give. If somebody is giving me chance, so I would rather prefer a person who have general information of multiple things in some roles. So I would like to give him that chance to showcase his talent.
Got it. And the specialists, please raise your hands. Okay, specialists. The gentleman at the back. Can we get the gentleman in the back first?
I think it's an age of a specialist because people would need a specific solution to their problems. So they would like to invest, they would like to buy products which solves their problem. And in order to solve the problem, one has to really know the things in depth. Only then they can be, pay for that and, invest in that.
Good point. Okay, here's the broad view, right? The more commoditized your business, the more number of generalists you want to have. The more specific technology that's involved, the more specific knowledge, the more number of specialists you'll need to have. That's one type of rule. A second rule, however, is it depends on the stage of the company, right? You'd rather have someone who is a little bit more of a polymath in more things, right? Than someone who is just super specific and really can't help you. Because your ROI on your investment is going to be way lower on an assortment of specialists than a smaller set of generalists in the early days. All right? And that gets back to the adaptability and the experience as well. People who have been around longer but have been around more generalist roles will be way more value additive as being a generalist in the early days than saying, I don't know, a neuroscience major who's done a PhD and then has just purely done that for 15 years and then giving them a generalist role in a startup, right? Now this is the last, I hope everyone's read this last line. Don't tolerate a diva except yourself. And if you do that, please tell your team that you're the diva and no one else is allowed to be so, right? You cannot, when you're building a team, you must recognize that as soon as you get a diva in, that's the start of politics. And you got to unpolitic the place away. And it's okay if you're the diva. You need to be a little bit of one. I'm sure you can all spot me being one already right now. All right. Okay, here are the stakeholders that matter. Now, this isn't an order of stakeholders, but these are the 4 that matter. It is also to state that none of the others do matter. People will say, oh, PR matters. What are you doing on social media matters. No. Your employees, your customers, your investors, but don't forget your family. Too many founders give too much away and forget about the last one without recognizing the sacrifices when you make with your time makes for them as members of your family. And remember, you are human. You are likely to fail. We startups, over 90% will fail, which means you will fail. Forgive yourself. We often come up with this God complex that we must solve everything for everyone in every way. You can't. And you never will. Right? You're human, you will please forgive yourself every now and then. Right? And do that ever so frequently as you need to. That's that. These are my details. Nothing over here was proprietary. If you've taken snaps, you want to post them, do that, share them internally, whatever else. But I'm happy to take questions on.